Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. And today we're taking another hard look at sex trafficking. And today we're going to take another angle at this look. And we have Ted Swanson in here, who was the deputy in charge of actually prosecuting the bad guys in sex trafficking cases. He's done talks all over the world on sex trafficking. He's educated a lot of law enforcement and other lawyers on them. He's now on the civil side, going to prosecute a lot of these cases on the civil side of things, and letting the victims know that the statute is opened up so that they can actually file a civil lawsuit against these folks.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
So Ted, first, where are you located? How do people find you?
So I'm in Glendale. You can find me on my website, www.resolutetrials.com. Just look me up, or I'm on IG as well, Teddy Swanson Ramirez.
Teddy, it's at Teddy Swanson Ramirez?
Yeah, I think you just type in Teddy Swanson Ramirez and you'll get there. I'm Generation X, bro. So
what is Generation X?
I think, what is it, like 66 to like 76 or something like that? 78?
Man. I don't know what I am then, because I'm 1980. I don't know what that would be. I thought it was.
You might be a millennial.
No, that was like 85 on, bro. I'm not a millennial. Grow up. All right, so I wanted, for our listeners that are out there, they hear about these cases, and like our firm is your firm filing a lot of these ones on the civil side against hotels and motels. What a lot of people don't realize is what the actual victims or survivors go through.
Yeah.
So why don't you share with us some of the things that you have seen prosecuting these criminally, and kind of let people know what they're in for.
Oh my gosh. Well, if we're going to look at what the survivors go through, we call them survivors. They are victims initially, but once they start testifying, they become survivors, because that's a hard thing to do. So what I used to do in the prosecutorial practice is we would get these victims who were mostly females, sometimes few males, but mostly females, and then we'd have to talk to them and get them comfortable with testifying. Prior to the current DA, what you could do is you could subpoena them, and if they refused to come in the subpoena, which was often the case, we would issue a body attachment for them. We would go get them. We would try to get them as close as possible to the trial date, even the date of trial, so that they wouldn't have to be in custody. That's the last thing we'd want to do. But for those reluctant witnesses, as well as the witnesses who would come in voluntarily, it's a very traumatic thing to testify against, in essence, against your pimp, but also oftentimes he was a boyfriend. So there's a combination of issues. There's sexual abuse going on. These girls have endured for almost their entire life. There's domestic violence going on, lots of domestic violence case, and then there's gang aspect to it, because these pimps are always ganged up. They're different gangs operate in different neighborhoods, and so you have to be very careful about that. If you're testifying, you don't want to get a green light on you.
What's a green light?
Green light is basically when there's a green light to kill you. If you testify against a pimp, if you testify against a gang member, they'll put a green light on you, and it's okay to kill you. So it's very dangerous for these girls to do that.
And have you ever had a green light on you?
I have not had a green light on me. I've had
that you know of.
Yeah, I don't want to quite go on and say too much, but I have had a father of in a gang case tell me he was going to kill me. I don't want to go beyond that, but yeah, I've had that happen. But beyond that, I'm pretty fair with the defendants. I'm fair with even if they're pimps, they're still human. They still feel just like everyone else. So I've never thrown any blows below the belt. I've always been very fair, I think. Most of the people that I put away have been okay with me, thankfully. So nothing has ever happened to me, but I'm always careful.
What are the signs, and how do you know if somebody is being trafficked? Because sometimes they can't get out of the situation, or they're brought in through a certain grooming type scenario. So walk us through some of those things. Like how are you finding these survivors or these victims at the start were kind of groomed into this very sad situation, and then what stories have you seen to help them get out?
So the most obvious signs, and we can talk about how they get in there. That's a whole entire little digression. But some of the signs, I'd say the most obvious ones are going to be tattoos, right? A lot of these girls, they'll have tattoos on their faces of their pimps or on their body, and that's clearly what it is. It's a way for pimps to know whose property these girls are. So if you're a pimp on the street and you see a girl and she has a name of something on her face and you recognize that, then you know to leave her alone because she's with this pimp, and so you can't take her as your own. So that's the first sign. But then if you're looking, if you're a parent, for instance, and you want to know what should I look for my kids, well, go to their Instagram, go to their IG, go to their TikTok, see what their hashtags are. See what kind of people they're focusing on. Are they focusing on pimps? Are they focusing on money? Do you see a lot of cash in the pictures? Are there pictures of people with tons of cash, with gold, with bling, with nice cars? What are they coming home with on their books, on their school books, on their backpacks? Do they have cash? Are they coming home with cash? Are they coming home with what kind of clothes are they going out in at night? Are they going out in these skimpy little outfits? Who's picking them up? What kind of cars are picking them up? Those are all questions you're going to ask if you have children. Those are all signs to look for. And then, you have all the affects, right? The normal stuff that you have with sexual abuse. Is the person, do you have different friends? Are they becoming depressed? Are they having a different relationship with you or their other family members? Are they listening to different music? Are they different people than what you've noticed before? And those are all cases. Those are all signs that you want to look at.
And what are some specific either hashtags or markings that a parent would look for to give them a clue that something's going on?
Well,
something on their backpack or something like that.
So there's a lot of little things like PGO, that's pimping going on, HGO, hoeing going on. You'll see some numbers. You'll see signs of like on tattoos or like drawings. You'll see money signs. Often, for whatever reason, I see a lot of Hello Kitty. I've seen crowns. Yeah, I'm just thinking right now. A lot of times you'll see crowns. Crowns are huge. The king and the queen concept. So the pimp is the king, all his hoes are the queens, and they're all families. So what they do is they call them families. So you'll have, they'll call them wifeys. So like if you have multiple girls working for a pimp, each girl will have a wifey, and they'll call them wifey. And so you'll hear them refer to themselves as those kinds of names: my king, my queen, my wifey.
And I know a lot of us are what we call the people that are setting the stage for these bad actors, the hotels, the motels, other folks. Like, what are these dead bang things that, like, how did you not know, right? Like, you clearly knew that there were pimps running girls out of your hotel, motel.
Yeah, so I was just talking with a guy who's doing some multi-district litigation stuff, and we were talking about, what are the signs? Should have known, knew or should have known. That's what it comes down to, whether you're in federal district or whether you're in state and doing premise liability cases. You're always looking at known or should have known. And so, you're going to have, again, it's going to be varying aspects. If you're on the blade or the track, that's where the girls are working.
Yeah, what is it, those terms? What does on the blade or on the track mean?
So like being on the blade, that's like on Figueroa, right? Figueroa starts at about just south of downtown LA, goes all the way to, I think, 120th, 130th. That's called a stroll, track, or blade. That's where the girls work. I mean, if you literally drive down Figueroa, any time of the day or night, you're going to see girls working. You get to like 68th, 69th, 85th, you're going to see girls just all over the place. Same with Western. Western's a blade. You got blades in Pomona and Holt. You've got little stuff going on. I don't know if it's going on still, but in Pasadena and Foothill. You have some stuff on Van Nuys, obviously Hollywood.
So a blade is like a geographical area or street known for...
It's like a used car dealership or car dealerships, not used cars, but car dealerships. They all line up in the same area. It's the same thing with this. And you can actually have different areas. Over on Hollywood, you can have an area where there's individuals that are primarily transsexuals. You can have, there's areas where you have different kinds of girls, but they're all over the place. It's rampant. You'll know when you're there. So, when you're looking at hotels in those areas, it's fairly easy. Like, do you really not know that you're servicing this kind of aspect of society when it's just right outside? When there's police are arresting girls all the time, probably at the hotel when they're doing undercovers and they're doing stings. You see it all the time. You know exactly what's going on. Or at least these hotel owners should. Gets a little bit more nuanced when you're talking about, and this is more of the federal district stuff, when you're talking about hotels where the pimps come in, for a day or two. They go to this hotel, they have the girl, she'll be there. They'll advertise on whatever. It used to be a back page. Now it's kind of morphed into other thing. I think there's still a Backpage Pro out there. And so they'll advertise, then the clients will respond. They'll have them come to the hotel room. The pimps will leave. Clients will have the sex, give the girls the money. The pimps will get the money afterwards, and then they'll all stay in the same hotel. It's a little bit harder there, right? Because then you have to show, what documents the hotel or the motel has to have been put on notice. Have they been told by police officers about, hey, there's trafficking? Have they met with trafficking advocates? Have they been made aware in these aspects as to what's going on?
And a lot of times they can't say that nobody specifically told them. It doesn't have to be actual notice. It could be what's called constructive notice, where like there's literally Johns that are just waiting in the lobby to go up to the same room all day, right? And they're booking rooms and I've seen a lot of survivors cases where they're charging room rates that are more than like the Montage Laguna Beach. So it's crazy.
I did a murder case, 2003. It was a 17-year-old. She was murdered by a John in her room. He choked her to death. His defense was that his defense was self-defense, that she sprayed him with pepper spray and was going to try to take his money. It was a bunch of crap. But anyway, and so in that case, we did the preliminary hearing, and I had one of the motel owners. I think she was like the wife of the owner or something, and she would talk about what they would do effectively is they would rent each of the rooms out to a specific female. And then what would happen was the sex worker would then bring in Johns. The Johns would pay to the hotel. They would pay, they'd be there for an hour or so. They'd pay $75 to the hotel. Then the female would leave. Sometimes they'd clean up the room. Sometimes they wouldn't. And then she'd bring another John in. So the exchange was, you get free rooms. We get to charge the Johns. Known or should have known. I mean, they're renting these rooms for an hour. You could go to that ledger and you see 12 people in one room over a period of a day. Is there any question that they knew what was going on?
It's just crazy to me. And then, we've heard stories where, the hotel managers are taking part in it as well. It's sad. But going back to the other term you used, there was the blades, and then you said there was another term that you used.
For blades is stroll or blade or the track. Wow. Any of those three terms.
And where are they advertising at?
So advertising,
or letting people know that, we're going to be in this motel or hotel today.
So if they're going to advertise, so the two ways mostly that this is done, and this is also interesting. For every race, you have a different way of trafficking, right? So for the Asians, you're going to be doing brothels, and you're going to have people coming from Asia, and there's like a whole circuit that they can start in Los Angeles and go all the way through the country. Through New Orleans up to New York. So it's a whole circuit that they run, and they're doing brothel stuff. For whites, a lot of that is you're going to be doing back. They're going to have bars, and in the back of the bar, you're going to have a girl that basically they're running a train on her. For the same thing, you have casitas for Latinos. They have little apartments all over LA. And those are being used for trafficking. And also with Asians, you're going to have, I heard at one point, like any place you went to in Irvine, at one place is going to have at least one unit reserved for trafficking. It was some kind of statistic like that. I don't remember it exactly. And then for African American, a lot of that is going to be on the pimps, at least, not the girls, but the pimps are going to be doing the blades and the strolls and tracks. So it stratifies by race in a lot of respects. And these aren't my rules or anything like that. This is just how it is.
Wow. And how does the I think as a parent, I got 3 young daughters.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that we talked about some things to look for, but we do a lot of work with foster kids too, and I know they target a lot of foster kids. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about how they pick and choose who they're going to traffic?
We both know the answer to that. What's the most important thing in a female's life? The father.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think any of these kids that I've ever worked with have a father that's in their life. So, if and it's sad to say, if whatever race you are, if you're in your daughter's life and you're a male, there's that chance of her actually ending up in this is very small. It can happen. Yeah. It's possible, but it's not something that I would necessarily worry about.
Yeah, and it's, foster care, if you don't have mom or dad, it puts you even bigger at risk if you have no support system. And,
So we've seen cases. They will recruit out of foster care. They get, especially if they're in group homes, you get one kid that's with a pimp, and then they use her to recruit. Hey, why don't you? And she'll tell her friend, hey, why don't you come out with me? We can make some money. We can have some fun. We'll do some drugs. We'll come out with with my boyfriend. And then all of a sudden she has a girl coming out, and then the trafficker will pick her up 2 blocks away. And now we weirdly have this. There's this. The law has changed in Los Angeles. You used to have prostitution by a minor used to be illegal, and that changed. Prostitution by a minor is no longer illegal, which it sounds great because we don't want to stigmatize really anybody with a prostitution arrest, because we know that it's so much different. We know that the way they get into that, it's so onerous and it's so horrible. So we don't really want to stigmatize, but law enforcement can't arrest these girls and when they're in the midst of it. They can't pick them up. They can't detain them. It's the same thing with foster agencies. I've had cases where girls will be in a car with the foster, and they'll drive by the blade and they'll say, hey, pull me over. I want to get out right here. And so they get them out. I mean, I have a case. So I had another case. It was another murder case. The defendant, I'm not going to say the names of the defendants, I don't think that's appropriate, but you could search it and you could find the name of the defendant on the LA Times in an article that I had. But that defendant, he murdered a transsexual that I think she probably stole some money from him. And so he followed her. She went up to the front door of a house, rang the door, and then before the person could help her, he shot her a couple times. And we had her last breaths on 911 as she was dying and expiring. It was really sad. At the same time, he was trafficking an 11-year-old. Yeah, she was 11. I can still remember her name. Again, I'm not going to say it. She's 11 years old. She was an autistic kid, and she was from up north. So she came down. We flew her out on the LAPD plane. She loved that. She was a great kid. She came down on the LAPD plane. We flew her out. She testified, and she did a great job in testifying. He went away. He went away for life without parole. It was a special circumstances case. So when she was done testifying, we flew her back up, and because of the rules, she said she wanted to go back to the blade. And essentially what happened is we had to just give her some condoms and let her go. Wow. And, it's hard to allow an 11-year-old girl to just be out there, knowing she's out there and not being able to do anything about it. So
yeah, I mean, civilly now, I do think that a lot of us actually have the ability to kind of cut the head off the snake. I still think it's always, if people stop being able to easily pay for things and do it, you can make a real change.
Stop the demands. Yeah. Well, how do you do that?
And I think that's where you go to the top, to the people, expose a lot of the players that are doing it, hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. And once you start getting, big corporations that are kind of involved in it, I think that's a good way to start. And just educating folks. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know, what are some signs? I know if somebody puts up the H and the C, or is it human traffic, or H and a T in an airport, or law enforcement.
I've heard about that. And there's there's a couple, I guess sign language signs that you can do. Yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of awareness, because people have seen staggering amounts, and it's, a lot of movies, or a movie have come out that talks about it, and it's, sensationalizes it a lot, but it puts it a lot of people front and center. So I think a lot more people that are aware of it might be able to help. But I think if you cut the head off the snake, but also help a lot of the kids that don't have mom or dad in foster care. Yeah, it's 60% or so are foster kids.
So I mean, the problem with some of that though is that the majority of girls that are traveling aren't going to be giving HT signs, because the whole entire process of how it works and how coercive it is. So when you're outside, if you're obviously all ages are trafficked. If you're younger, you're going to get more money than when you're older. If you're a 13 or 14-year-old, you're going to be able to command triple, quadruple the amount that a 20-year-old would. which is horrible.
That's crazy.
It is. It's just the depravity of we're all men here, but like some of us are just horrible, right? And that's what that depravity is. So you get these girls. The goal is to get them out as young as possible, to get them start working, and it's super coercive. So you have an environment where the girls will be outside working. If they look and make eye contact with another pimp, they make eye contact, that pimp can now snatch them. Snatching is kidnapping. And once they're snatched, then there's a choose-up fee. Choose-up fee is like, okay, the pimp will say, now you owe me $2,000. You have to work for me. You have to give me $2,000. And then supposedly they're done, but that never ends at that point. God. And so while they're snatched, they can be raped, they can be beat up, they can be subject to physical violence. A lot of times I'll see them being made to get naked. They'll have to stand in a bathtub in freezing cold water, and then they'll have to sleep naked in the bathtub, something like that. I've seen that over and over again in my cases. So what that's doing is that's creating a coercive environment where these girls are afraid to go out on their own, and they have to be with their pimp because their pimp is actually offering them protection. He might be beating her up sometimes, and he might be doing all this bad stuff, but he's offering her protection over all these other guys. So even though, all the pimps have sex with their girls. So this pimp might be having sex with the 14-year-old girl, but in some sense, he's still offering her protection from what is worse out there. So are they doing it, in a sense, people say, oh, they're doing it willfully when they're 19, 20 years old. But it's because they've been through this coercive environment. All
right. And then, some of the other stuff, we've been going on for a while here. I think we could probably do, many sessions of this type of thing. What are some goals and hopes that you have with, coming out of the criminal side of the prosecution and doing things civilly? Because I know you do also sex abuse cases, personal injury cases as well. And I know you're passionate about it because you've been doing this for decades. Yeah,
I like victims. I love victims. Like I've always, since I was a kid, I had a rough fifth grade year, and I learned to not like bullies in fifth grade. I got past that pretty quickly, but it's always been with me that I'm not going to let bullies win. And so that's right now for me, it's whether it's insurance companies or whether it's corporations that are taking advantage of consumers. Before it was, people who would commit sex acts against children and women. I don't like bullies, and I feel I'm kind of an empath, so I feel for my victims, and I think I'm not a great speaker. You're probably a much better speaker than I am, but I have the passion, and I care about the victims. So I think for me, in whether it's personal injury, sex abuse cases, whether it's automobile accidents, premise liability, they're all victims because they've been injured in some sort of way, emotionally, physically, mentally, however they've been injured. I want to help.
Yeah, and I think you said something very important for all of our listeners, empathy. I think being an empathetic person, being an empathetic lawyer makes you probably the best advocate that you can be. And I think if you try to be too emotionally detached, it doesn't put you in the right headspace to really advocate for somebody.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've sometimes I feel like I can be too empathetic, and so I have to put the brakes on a little bit. But I mean, it's almost hard to be too empathetic. If the jury sees you caring about your client, they're going to care about the client.
Yeah. So if you have any direct questions, I think Ted's one of the most well-versed people in this space. Reach out to Ted directly. You can go to justicesteamnetwork.com to reach out through that as well. But Ted, I want to thank you coming on the show. I look forward to working with you a lot on this case, holding a lot of the bad guys accountable.
I'd love to.
Yeah, dude. Appreciate you coming on.
Can I plug a charity?
Oh, for sure, dude, for sure.
All right. So there's a charity out there. Both my kids suffer from a disease called Friedreich's ataxia. It's a progressive neurological disease that eventually will cut your life short and will destroy your ability to walk and do everything. If anyone wants to get out there, go to the site. It's called Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance, FARA, and donate. It's a rare disease, but we're close to a cure.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. We'll put that tag on the episode as well so people can easily be able to donate.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on, Ted.
Thank you.